I'm fully aware that many of you that are with us this morning might be unfamiliar with the events that occurred close to this spot almost 67 years ago. And yet if we were faced with a similar loss of 10 young lives in one incident today, we'd be absolutely horrified. And even more so if we were to learn that 7 of those lost were under the age of 23. Yet believe it or not, that's exactly what happened. On Saturday morning in August 1944, experienced pilot John Ellis and a crew of 9 took off with 34 other B-24 Liberators from their base at Wendling in Norfolk. Their mission that day was to attack an airfield northeast of Paris, which was being used by the German Luftwaffe. The weather that morning was heavy overcast, and by the time the group had formed up close to the North Norfolk coast, the sortie was already running half an hour behind schedule. The group headed south on a course for Brighton in Sussex, but at 07:47 AM, flying at a height of 18,500 feet just northeast of London, something happened. A mysterious mid-air incident occurred, causing 29 tons of bomb-laden aeroplane to start tumbling from the sky, with the subsequent death of all on board a few minutes later. And yet if it were not for the actions of those on the flight deck, the death toll could have been catastrophically higher. After years of research, I now know exactly what caused this tragic accident. 10 young men lost their lives that day. 10 more families torn apart as a consequence of war. I would like to now hand you over to World War II firefighter Ernie Havis to briefly tell his experience on the ground that day and how the story was conveyed at the time. The 12th of August 1944, the day I will never forget.
Ladies and gentlemen, honoured guest, these words that I wrote, I'm going to read. My friend Janet Stocker said to me when I asked her to type them up, she said they should have a title. So I gave that some thought, and I've got a title, and I'm calling my words Beyond Courage. I would ask you all to take those 2 words home with you. To me, they mean a great deal, and they should mean a great deal to everybody that values their freedom. My name is Ernie Havis. The 12th of August 1944, a Saturday morning, that is when the plane crashed at 3 minutes past 8. After the fire, when it hit the ground, the bombs exploded, but not all of them, and cannon shell was scattered everywhere. I had just come off of night duty, dealing with Hitler's new weapon, the V1s. I was 15 years old and had been a firefighter for almost 2 years. I believed I had seen all the horrors and hurt of war, but the sight before me was of total destruction. The images have stayed in my mind to this very day. I will not tell you the state of my mind on that day, but as I formed heaps, I handled every part with the greatest respect I could possibly muster. Those lads made the ultimate sacrifice to give us all our freedom today. It was not until the next day that I learned the true story of the air crash. After the Liberator, containing those 10 young brave lads, plus a full load of bombs, had come out of the clouds, and the crew saw the town below, despite having difficulty controlling their damaged aircraft, as seen by witnesses at that time, those 10 very brave lads stayed with their bomb-laden vessel and crashed it on the edge of Cheshunt town, away from their houses, just across there in actual fact. They could have bailed out, but they stayed with their stricken bomber, thus saving hundreds of lives. That is true courage, ladies and gentlemen, of the highest order. In my lifetime, ladies and gentlemen, I have experienced fear. In 1943, after a bad injury, I nearly crossed to the other side. How I've tried to understand their courage and bravery, but I'm not in their league. The 10 true gentlemen gave their lives for many. That day, I made a promise that I would one day have a memorial built there in recognition of their unselfish actions, and it is a privilege and an honour to finally realise that promise in their memory. They will not be forgotten, and it is a credit to you all to come to this unveiling. I understand how proud your family members must feel that are here today, and my thanks go to Mr. Lee Williamson, our sponsor, and David Parnell for helping me to fulfil my promise. Thank you.
Significant time, we pause to honour all those who laid down their lives in war, particularly remembering those from other shores who in those years answered the call to serve and as a result lost their lives. On this day, we especially remember.
At this significant time, we pause to honour all those who laid down their lives in war, particularly remembering those from other shores who in those years answered the call to serve and as a result lost their lives. On this day, we especially remember. This is the crew who bravely brought that plane down in Cheshunt and saved the lives. John D. Ellis, Samuel C. Stalsby, Robert B. Cox, Stanley F. Jankowski, Clare W. Hultengren, John H. Holling, J.V. Cable, Jack O. Shaeffer, Frank Minick Jr., William McGinley.
Present hard. Horse. Hard.
We now come to the dedication. We have gathered at this place and at this time to remember with gratitude and pride these 10 young Americans who served in war and conflict. Ordinary Americans from all places and segments of national life were sent overseas and into battle to resist tyranny and aggression and preserve freedom. Today we especially honour the memory of all American airmen who died in the service of our nation in this campaign and war. We remember them and we honour their memory. Today we call on all of you here to recognise the service to our nation given by all war veterans. We dedicate ourselves to the ideals for which our nation fought in many wars. We value freedom and peace. And we look to the day when more and more ordinary men and women in the world may enjoy freedom, live in peace with their fellow citizens, and rejoice in the life that God has given them. We remember with pride these 10 young men who paid the supreme sacrifice in the defence of our freedom.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today we take pause to recognize 2 significant events. The first lasted just a few moments, while the other has lasted a lifetime. The first event is now etched in stone in front of you in remembrance of the sacrifice of 10 brave American airmen who gave their lives in a worldwide fight against tyranny and oppression. The Ellis crew departed from their aerodrome in the early morning of 12 August 1944 en route to support the Allied effort in Western Europe. They never made it to their objective, nor did they make it back to the aerodrome. Instead, Lieutenant Ellis made a split-second decision, surely supported by his 9 crewmates, to steer their ailing Liberator away from this beautiful village and its many homes and citizens. This memorial now stands for all to visit and to remember. The second event I mentioned is the fruition of a lifetime's work to erect this beautiful and fitting memorial. I'd like to take just a few moments and publicly recognize Mr. Ernie Havis. Mr. Havis has been determined and driven with purpose for 66 plus years to establish a memorial to honor the American Liberator crew that he witnessed crash at this very location, or should I say about a half mile from here, as Mr. Pritchard corrected me earlier. It was certainly a significant emotional event for a 15-year-old boy, because he vowed at that time to not rest until these men were properly recognized for their sacrifice. Well, Ernie, you can now rest. Your endeavor is complete. I would like to take just a minute and present Mr. Havis with a token of the appreciation of the American people. This certificate reads, appreciation presented to Ernest L. Havis, with grateful appreciation to Ernie Havis for his exceptional dedication and lifelong commitment to establishing the Liberator Memorial in Cheshunt, Hertfordshire, United Kingdom. You recognize the selfless sacrifice of 10 U.S. airmen who lost their lives on August 12, 1944, after steering their aircraft away from the town of Cheshunt and its hundreds of citizens. Your distinguished efforts will remain in the hearts and minds of the American people and all who visit this Liberator Memorial. Signed on the 22nd of January this morning by Louis B. Sussman, the Ambassador of the United States to the United Kingdom in the Court of St. James. I'd like to present this to you now, Ernie, and extend my gratitude. Of course, I know that certificate will be hanging on a wall in memory of this dedication and to all the people in this community that have helped to support the erection of this memorial. In closing, I want to say it is a humbling experience to stand here in front of you as an American military officer as you honor our countrymen and my fellow servicemen. I thank the entire team that made today's events possible, especially Mr. Lee Williamson, Mr. David Parnell, and the trustees of the Liberator Memorial. It is a privilege to represent the United States as you dedicate this memorial, and know that our nation and the families and friends of the Liberator crew are grateful for the recognition you have bestowed upon them. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ernie Havis.
Would Mr. Lee Williamson please come forward? I'd be honoured to have him stand by my side. Ladies and gentlemen, you may wonder, after all the years, how this memorial come about. I will tell you the story. My friend Lee was in my home having some cup of tea with me, and the postman delivered a letter, and the letter was yet another refusal for a grant to build this memorial. Lee asked me to tell him the story, and I told him the story of what I witnessed that day when I was a 15-year-old lad, and I could see he was really moved. And he said, you know, he said, it's time the memorial was built. He said, what I'm going to do, he said, I'm going to finance this. I will build a memorial, he said, and I will build a memorial that this borough will be really proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, and that's exactly what he did. It was his money, his